Hello, everybody. This is Catholic Dad, episode number 321. Roe v. Wade, a secular argument for being pro-life. You know, it's 47 years since 1973, January 22nd, when Roe versus Wade was decided, and it essentially said there was a constitutional right for abortion, that states can't deny women that right. And since that point in time, over 50 million pregnancies have ended in abortion. And I just wanted to talk about what abortion is, because we can make arguments on religious basis. We in the pro-life communities tend to be religious people, and people within the pro-choice communities or the abortion communities tend to be secular or non-religious, tend to be. I mean, these aren't 100%, but if we in the religious communities are trying to convince the people in the secular communities of the integrity of our argument or position, we probably should, I would caution you that we probably shouldn't make it based upon religious grounds. Because the abortion argument, or if you're convincing secular people of the integrity of your position, perhaps you should develop a secular argument to convince them, because that's the language they speak. I mean, the point of the abortion or the pro-life community is not to beat people up or prove that you're right and they're wrong, or disparage people or deny people rights. The point of the pro-life community is to save lives and save souls, and therefore we want to convince them on reasonable grounds. And so how can we make a secular argument for the pro-life community about the integrity of our position that would hopefully appeal to the secular people within the abortion community? And so here I'll give a little jab at it. What is a human right? Well, a human right, I would argue, Catholic Dad would argue, is that a human right is something we're free to exercise that imposes no obligation on other people. For example, my right to free speech today, that I can appear on YouTube and make a video, people can freely listen to it, and imposes absolutely no obligation on people. And I can't force people to listen to it, and I can't force people to partake in it, and I can't force people to pay for it. That I actually have this right to go out and pursue my free speech. So a right is something that we're free to exercise that imposes no obligation on anybody. Now, where do our rights come from? Well, we in the religious communities make the argument that our rights come from the Almighty God or the Creator, that it was our own creation that endowed us with human rights. And this is the argument that Thomas Jefferson uses in the Declaration of Independence, when we're endowed with inalienable rights, among these life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and they come from our Creator. Well, if we make that argument, that perhaps the secular people within the abortion communities won't really listen to us, because all of a sudden we've lost them at God and the Creator. Well, here's a different way of stating the exact same argument, which would probably appeal to secular folks, is that the fact that we're human, the fact that we exist, the fact that we are, is the reason we have human rights, that our very existence and the fact that we have life is the reason why we actually have human rights. And I think most reasonable people within the secular communities would probably agree with that argument. I mean, what are human rights? They're rights we are endowed with because we are human. That's what a human right is. And we're human because we exist. And therefore, you say the exact same thing without bringing God into the equation. Now, whether you fundamentally believe we come from God, or you fundamentally believe we come from non-God-like sources and we're just a mistake, a happenstance in creation, well, that doesn't change the argument that human rights are due to our very existence. And therefore, we shouldn't get all up in snippety because we don't make the God argument. Now, St. Augustine, one of the greatest thinkers of all time, I know he is a saint, but he's also a great thinker and he's a philosopher, posed the argument that truth cannot contradict itself. Truth cannot contradict truth. And therefore, so here's my argument for you. If our rights are innate to our very being, meaning that they're innate to our very existence, they must be true. Rights must be true. And, by the way, the pro-life claim that we have a right to life and the pro-abortion claim that we have a right to abortion are actually contradictory statements. They contradict one another, and therefore truth cannot contradict truth. So when you have two contradictory statements, there are only one of three possibilities, and let's count them off. Number one, they're both wrong, that we don't have a right to life or we don't have a right to abortion. That's the first possibility. Number two is we have a right to abortion, but we don't have a right to life. Number three is we have a right to life, but we don't have a right to abortion. I think I said that properly, but you know what I'm talking about. So let's analyze these three possibilities. Is there anywhere on the planet that we don't have a right to life, and we also don't have a right to freedom of choice and freedom of reproductive choice? Yeah, there are places. China being one of them, North Korea being another one. There's probably other oppressive regimes out in the world that actually don't allow you to have your own fertility choices. They don't allow you to decide upon child rearing. I mean, there's one-child policy still in effect around the globe. And, there are governments out there, China being one of them, that can come in, they can abort your baby from you, they can force you to have babies, they can forcibly sterilize you, they can actually kill your child once it's born, And I think the denial of the right to life and the denial of the right to abortion, if you deny both those rights and say they're both not right, I think everybody on both sides of the argument, both the pro-life argument and the secular pro-abortion argument, would agree that if you deny both those rights, then it's a massive violation of human rights. I think they are. I mean, there's international committees that are set up stating that there's a huge violation of human rights going on in these countries. And I think everybody, even the communists for the most part, not the Chinese communists, but even the communists in the secular world in America would agree that if you deny people both those rights, that's a massive violation of human rights. So both cannot be wrong. And therefore now we had three possibilities, both cannot be wrong, is gone. Now we have two possibilities. We have is the right to life correct, or is the right to abortion correct? And so let's break this down using some deductive reasoning. Okay, are you ready for this? Can you have abortion without life? That's the question. And the answer to that's an undeniable no. You can't. You can't have abortion without life, because everybody who partakes in and procures abortion must first have life. Therefore, life has to pre-exist the existence of abortion. Question is, can you have life? The second question is this: can you have life without abortion? And of course you can. That's actually how life occurs. If you don't abort it, then life will be procured from there. It will flourish and be on its own. And actually, abortion is the thing that stops life. So in that argument, life is the only thing that is actually tied to our very existence. That if you have to have life before abortion, and you can actually have life without abortion and not the other way around, then using that argument and deductive reasoning, that life has to be the intrinsic human right that's tied to our very existence, and therefore because truth cannot contradict truth, then abortion must not be an intrinsic human right. And this is the argument, by the way, that all the religious people use. They just don't know they use it. Well, some people may. But when they say, oh, we're created in the likeness and image of God, and therefore we have these rights, and that one of those is life. Well, yeah, that's true. But the abortionists would say, well, we exist, and therefore we have a right to reproductive choice. Well, not if you violate another intrinsic human right. Remember, what is a human right? It's something we're free to exercise that imposes no obligation on other people. If your right to abortion actually usurps the right to life of somebody else, that cannot be an intrinsic human right. But if your right to life actually says you can't have an abortion, that doesn't intrinsically stop the right to abortion, because it precedes the right to abortion. And therefore, abortion cannot be an intrinsic human right. And also, if we think about this in terms of the Garden of Eden, right? God said you can have everything you want, you just can't have from the tree of knowledge. Meaning that God's law, and again, we're leaving the secular argument here. God's law, even in God's law, there are some limitations on human behavior. Therefore, we as humans have to have certain limitations on our behavior for order within our society. Now, I will go one step further with the abortionists out there. If we actually took abortion the maximum and we aborted every pregnancy, we would extinct ourselves in one generation, and therefore the existence of human life cannot be linked to abortion, and abortion cannot be an intrinsic human right. It can't be, because we would extinct ourselves if we actually took their argument to the maximum. I'll also caution the secular people out there. If you act in a manner incongruent with the very manner which you claim your rights, you have no claim to your rights at all, and you will reduce this to absolute despotism, meaning that you claim your rights come from your very existence, and therefore the right that you claim actually usurps the right to your very existence. That nullifies your right, your very right to abortion. And therefore, if you nullify your right to life, or your right to abortion, because you can take away the intrinsic human right to life, then you've actually taken away all your rights, every one of them, because all your rights are based upon the human existence. That they are. Therefore, you have no right to property, you have no right to safety, you have no right to security, you have no right to speech, you have no right to... So if you act in a manner incongruent with the very manner in which you claim your rights, then you have no rights to, or you have no claim to your rights at all. And that's the secular argument for being pro-life. Please master it. Use it on some secular friends, but master it first in the mirror. This is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Please like the video please watch the video a couple times. Study it. If you can master that argument, you can actually make a cogent tale. And oh, by the way, I will encourage you, if you actually do have a conversation with somebody about abortion, stay level-headed. Don't get emotional, because emotions have no place in being reasonable. They just don't. Emotions destroy diplomacy. Emotions destroy any kind of inkling of connection between two people on opposite ends of an argument. And so be reasonable and be measured and be like, just be a rock. If you could do that, maybe you'll grab their heartstrings and maybe they'll come your way and say, you know, that person's posing a reasonable argument. That's how you convert hearts. That's how you save babies. That's how you save souls, because the point of the pro-life movement is to save lives and save souls. It's not to win an intellectual battle against somebody else. That's not the point of what we do. Our goal is directed toward the good, not directed toward the prideful. Okay. Anyway, this is Catholic Dad making you think about it. Like or subscribe, get the Mass, and pray the daily rosary. God bless you all.